drawing graphs of quadratic equations. Just before we start, just want to remind you that a notes jotter is available for this video. Just see the description below for a download link, and you can get a worksheet to work along with me as we go through the video. So we've been asked to plot the graph of y equals x squared. Now for this, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to use a table of values. And all that means is we've got some values for x that we are going to substitute into the equation in order to get the answer for y. Now I'm going to show you today how to do this if you were using a calculator, because it's really important that you put things in correctly in order to make sure that you get the correct answers. And the key here is whenever you are doing substitution, wherever the letter x, the letter that you are substituting into, appears, you want to place brackets around it. So in your calculator, you will be dealing with brackets, something, and squared. Okay, so let's have a go at that. So we're going to use the first one, the -3. I'm going to place -3 in the bracket, and brackets, -3, close the brackets, and then I'm going to use the little x squared button in order to get my answer. Press equals, and I get an answer of 9. And so that is going to go into my table. Now this is the reason why the brackets are really important. Often, if you don't put the brackets in, your calculator will try and do -3 squared, but do the 3 squared first, 3 times 3 is 9, and then perform the negative because it's thinking about bid mass. You need the brackets to make sure that you do get a positive result. Now with the calculator, the other nice thing about it is we can click backwards, and all we need to do is just delete and change to 2 and press equals again, and we can get our next answer of 4. We can go to the calculator again, we can go delete 1 equals, and the answer is 1. And we can keep going with the same thing. 0 squared is 0, 1 squared, 1, 2 squared, 4, 3 squared, 9. So next, now that we've got our table of values, we actually want to plot those on the graph. So at this point, we bring in our graph, and we're going to just place points onto the graph corresponding with what we have just worked out. So -3, 9. I'm going to go to -3 and up to 9 and place my point. -2, 4, just there. -1, 1, just there. 0, 0, just there. And then 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 9. And what this means is we've now got ourselves the points. Now the key here is that we need to draw a graph. A graph means a line which connects the points together. But because this is a quadratic graph, we don't actually know that there is a direct line in between each value. It is a smooth curve. And so as we join the points together, we want to be marking each point together as smoothly as we possibly can. There we go. Now you'll notice a distinctive shape about the graph. It is a U shape. That is what we should always be looking for with a quadratic graph. It should always be symmetrical. You'll also notice that in the values in the table, starting with 0 in the middle. Then we have a 1 on either side, a 4 on either side, a 9 on either side. The values in the table should be symmetrical as well. Not always by the centre, but they will have that same pattern either side. So our next question, we're asked to plot the graph of y equals x squared plus 2x take away 2. Now this is obviously a little bit more of a complicated expression, but once again, if we follow the same rules, we're going to be okay as long as we remember those brackets. Wherever x is, let's place some brackets, just to make sure that our calculator definitely gives us the correct answers, especially when it comes to those negative values. So in the first one, we are looking at using brackets, and it's -4 squared, and then we're adding 2 brackets, the same value of x, -4, and then take away 2. If we do that, we get an answer of 6. So that is the value that we'll place into our table. Again, the beauty of the calculator being we can go back and we can now just change for the next value. Let's make that a 3, keep going back, and anywhere where we did have -4 before, we'll just make it now -3, and we get an answer of 1. And we can keep doing exactly the same all the way through this table, and we'll get an answer of -2. We'll get an answer of -3, answer of -2, an answer of 1, and an answer of 6. Now if you want to, you can go back and you check with your calculator that you agree, but what you'll find again is as we look through, here's our middle value, and then -2 and -2, 1 and 1, 6 and 6. We have our symmetry in the values, and so we're going to go ahead and try and plot those points on the graph. So -4, 6, -4 along and 6 up, then -3, 1, -2, -2, -1, -3, 0, -2, 1, 1, and 2, 6. Now again, you might notice we have got a nice bit of symmetry going on. It'll probably be more apparent though once we draw that line in, making sure it's one smooth line and joining each point to the next. There we go, our nice smooth curve. And you'll see it does have roughly the same shape as we had in the previous question. We have that U shape. That's the classic shape for a x squared graph. It is a good idea to point out here, if your points do come out looking anything different to this and it's an x squared graph, that's a suggestion that you've probably typed something into your calculator wrong or done a little bit of working out in your head wrong. A classic case is that your graph ends up looking, maybe this one comes out up here, and so your graph does a sort of strange shape like that. That's the classic mistake where just one point is in the wrong place. That's a key that you've done something wrong. Make sure you just check over your answers to get the nice smooth U shape. And so our last example, we want to plot the graph of y equals -x squared plus 3x plus 4. So the only difference we've got here is that we now have a -x squared. But again, if we follow the same patterns as we've done in previous questions, we're going to get exactly the right results. And so wherever the x is, put a bracket. Wherever the x is, put a bracket. Now you may notice here, the important thing here, the negative is still outside of the bracket. The reason for that is we want to square our x value, but then take the negative version of it. So we're going to do that with our calculator once again. We're going to start with the negative, the brackets, and it's -2 is the first value you've been asked to use, squared. And then we're adding 3 lots of -2 plus 4. And if we do that, we get an answer of -6. If we do the same again, but using -1, again, using the skills of our calculator that we can just take the values and change them. So the numbers in the brackets change to -1 instead, and we actually get an answer of 0. If we put 0 into this, I'll just do that one as well. So going back and changing our negatives now to 0. And there we go. We get an answer of 4. If we continue with this, we will get an answer of 6, another answer of 6, another answer of 4, and an answer of 0. And so all we now need to do, just like we have done previously, we want to plot each of those points onto the graph. So let's place each of those coordinates on our graph. So we've got -2, -6. There we go. We have -1, 0. We have 0, 4. We have 1, 6. We have 2, 6. We have 3, 4. And we have 4, 0. Now you might notice that this graph looks a little bit different to what we've seen previously, but it does still have that symmetry involved. We've got, this time, 2 numbers right in the middle. So actually there's a central point here where our line of symmetry begins. But we've got 6 either side, and then 4 either side, 0 either side, and if we continued, it would be -6 here. The next value would also be -6 to continue with the symmetry. Now again, all we want to do is join together our points with a smooth curve. There is an important feature here. At 1, 6 and 2, 6, we have 2 values which are the same. Because this is a curve, we do actually need, as we join the points together, we do need to go just a little bit above that and then come back down, just to make sure that we're dealing with the fact that at 1.5 we would have actually ended up with a slightly higher value than we started, and than 6. And what this has done, again, we've got a symmetrical graph, but this time the graph is more of a N shape than a U. Now, my little trick for remembering what this looks like, these look like smiley faces. We have a happy smiley face and we have a sad smiley face. And the reason for this, happy people, well, a word that we might use for a happy person is positive. A word we might use for a sad person, negative. And the link here is that this was a positive x squared graph and this was a negative x squared graph. Positive x squared graphs look happy, negative x squared graphs look sad. So now we look at the exam question, and this is from Edexcel June 2018, and it was on both the foundation and higher paper 2. This is a crossover question. Because it's paper 2, that there is our key that we are allowed to use our calculator in this question, and so that's what we're going to do. So the first thing is, it asks us to complete the table of values for y equals x squared minus x minus 6. Now 2 of the values have already been completed, so we only have to do 5 of them. And again, all I want to do is I want to think about using my calculator. Wherever there is an x, put in a bracket. So I've got x squared, take away x, take away 6. That's what I'm going to have in my calculator, and I'm going to use each of these values from the table. So, bracket. And the first one I'm going to do is -2. that is going to be squared, take away, and again bracket -2 and take away 6. And we're going to press equals, and it gives me an answer of 0. I'll do the same again for -1. Go back and change all of our -2's to -1. Get an answer. We have -4. For 1, that's the next one we've been asked to do. We can go back in again and do exactly the same thing. This time I just need to actually delete the negative and get my answer. It's -6. Now at this point you might notice we've hit two values which are exactly the same. Now with our information and our knowledge of these graphs, we should be expecting a little bit of symmetry coming. So I'm expecting that my next value should give me symmetry here. So it's -6, -6. So I'm hoping that both of these will be -4. Let's see if we put 2 into our calculator. What do we get? Well, there it is, -4. And so, if we follow that pattern, it is suggesting that we should now have the same value here and here. We should have 0, but I just want to make sure. I don't want to run any risk of losing any marks in the exam. So I'm going to put 3 into my calculator as well and see what answer I get. It is 0. Okay, so all we need to do now is plot those points onto our graph. So -3, 6 is there. -2, 0. -1, -4. 0, -6. 1, -6. Oh, let's just undo that. And 2, -4. And 3, 0. And if we have a look at those points, they do look nicely neat. It does say to draw the graph. The graph means draw the line. Again, we should be doing a nice smooth curve between each of the points. And there we go. We've done everything we've been asked. We've completed the table of values and we've drawn the graph.